I love films, but particularly old horror films very much. I love them, and particularly the silent and early sound films are the best. But up until, let's say, the 70s, I love some of the Roger Corman, Edgar Allan Poe films of the 60s and Hammer horror films, British horror films. I love films, and I was making music to films at a very early age. I showed them to my neighbors. I used to show 8mm horror films in the basement of my house. I was one of the pioneers. I don't know, there weren't very many people doing this outside of big symphonies. And so I got in on it early, and the film I chose to work with, the Golem, it's got a Czech rabbi. It's a famous legend. And I played that all over the world. I've done this in over 20 countries because it's a sound film from 1931. The Spanish-language version of Dracula, but it was filmed at Universal at the same moment that they were making Bela Lugosi's Dracula, the much better-known version. But they didn't have dubbing facilities, and they wanted a version for the Latin market. They saw there was money to be made by doing a Spanish version to show in Mexico and Spain and South America and Cuba. So at night, they took the sets and they brought in a Spanish cast and they just translated the film into Spanish. But like Dracula, it has no music. It was done in the Depression and they couldn't afford an orchestra. Nobody really thought it would make any money. But the irony was these horror films, Frankenstein and Dracula, the Wolfman, Mummy, they pulled the studio out of bankruptcy. They were very close to folding. But the horror films proved enormously popular all over the world. So this one was shown for some years, and then it kind of disappeared. And a version came out, pieced together in the mid-90s. That was on VHS, and I was aware of it. And then I was asked if I wanted to do some work in Cuba through another filmmaker who wanted some of my music for a documentary he was making. He said, if you give me this music, I can recommend you to play at the Havana Film Festival. So I said, yeah, I'm interested. He said, but the catch is you need a Spanish-language film because it's a festival of Latin American cinema. So I recalled the Spanish Dracula. And I thought, there's no music on this film other than the Swan Lake in the beginning on the titles, just like Dracula. And I checked it out. Sure enough, that was the case. I said, I'm going to make a score to play along with the film and enhance the experience for people to see it. I'm going to add music to this film, which has no music. I have to say, if you saw this film without my music, you might find some stretches of it kind of dull. But, no criticism of the film. I still think it's a better film than the Lugosi film. The camera moves more, the women are hotter, it's like a great film. Right? What can I tell you? Better costume, sexier costume. Editing is good.